Hail, listeners of the J Train. This is Jesse Starita, and we're sitting down this morning, which will be this evening when you're listening, with a talented piano player, Mr. Vijay Iyer. And Vijay joins us here on the phone line from San Francisco. And Vijay, welcome to the J Train.
Thanks. I'm happy to talk to you.
I just wanted to start out by asking just a little bit about the album, your new trio album, Accelerando. It's a follow-up to your album 3 years ago, the wildly successful Historicity, which was chosen Jazz Album of the Year by just a long scroll of proud publications, including Downbeat, the New York Times, LA Times, Chicago Tribune, and National Public Radio. I'm curious, in what ways does this new album perpetuate the feel and sound of Historicity? And then the flip side of that coin, in what ways does Accelerando wander into some new territory for you guys?
I think it's been an evolution for us. Since that other album, Historicity, came out in 2009, we've been touring a lot. And so then when I had the chance to make another album last year, I said, well, let's just document this trio now, because it sounds, to my ear, it sounds deeper and stronger and more refined, because we've had all these chances to test drive ideas in public, and that's where the real growth happens, not in the rehearsal room or in the practice room or something. It all happens in context. That's where the music means something. So I guess we just wanted to share what we've learned and found out and figured out, and just how we've been able to develop as an ensemble through all these chances being in public. So that's sort of what this album is. It's to me a document of what the trio sounds like now. Material-wise, I guess there are some, you could make a connection between the kinds of choices I made on Historicity and what's on this new record. But I guess I was just interested in presenting a spectrum of possibilities that we've been focusing on, and that's, there's some stuff that's basically straight ahead jazz. Like working with a tune by Herbie Nichols or a piece by Duke Ellington, that's very much part of the heritage of this music. Then working with pop songs that have somehow been meaningful to me in some way, or that we decided to kind of repurpose. That's also something that idea is also central to the legacy of this music. And that's what Miles and Coltrane and Monk and Bird did. They did the exact same thing. They took music from, what was the popular culture of their day and transformed it. So I guess that same kind of transformative mentality and energy is at work here for us.
Yeah, I wanted to build off of that and go into my next question too, because actually listening to both Historicity and Accelerando, you get this feeling that I think is fascinating about the trio sound, both collectively and individually, is that you don't find a lot of really prolonged soloing and improvisational passages, but a lot of those traditional things that you do find in the trio of jazz are sort of subordinate to the collective feel and texture and interplay that the three of you have. And so listening to Accelerando, it's hard to tell if you or Marcus or Stefan have the ball. And I just wanted you to talk about this, I'm going to use a basketball metaphor, this passing of the rock between teammates. How does that work with you guys, and how does that create, the unique sound that you hear on Accelerando?
It's really, a lot of it's about the team. I think the sports metaphors are apt here. There's no I in team and all that stuff that coaches tell you. I guess part of it is that we've just been focusing on that kind of thing, on ensemble, texture, and development, and collective improvisation. We're interested in the history of the rhythm section. Not just about being great soloists, but about creating a collective sense of where the music is going and like having basically the choices you make are about what the music sounds like, not what you sound like, and you're contributing to that larger totality. And when I say the history of the rhythm section, I'm also talking about James Brown's rhythm section as much as I am about Miles Davis' rhythm section. I'm talking about the meters and Earth, Wind, and Fire and Ohio Players and all that stuff. Like, there's all this intricate skill and detail and expression that's happening in there that's not about soloing. It's about feel. So we think a lot about that, or I don't know if think is the word, or to think about feel. We focus on it, is what I'd say. And, so that's kind of where we're at. And I think none of us is really interested in grandstanding as a soloist. I think we're all interested in that collective spark.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where where the emphasis is, what our priorities are.
And once again, we're talking with Vijay Iyer. He's got a new album out, him, I should say, and his trio, which features Marcus Gilmore on drums and Stefan Crump on the bass. Vijay, I wanted to ask you about some of what I feel like are hypnotic elements, and I'm just wondering here, as the son of Indian immigrants, did you hear a lot of traditional Indian music growing up, and does that have an influence on maybe some of those longer passages, those more hypnotic passages in your music?
Well, I heard quite a bit of it. I mean, I never studied it formally, and certainly not as a child or anything. I got into Indian music more actively as an adult. So I got into it in my 20s, and that unfortunately was 20 years ago. I'm 40 now. So it's been a part of my life for a long time. I've been focused on a lot of different aspects of music, rhythmic ideas and melodic ideas. And yeah, I mean, there's a approach to, especially, I mean, there are different kinds of Indian music. There's some stuff that's like people singing songs with lyrics and stuff. It's not, hypnotic is not the word you would use for something. But then there are other things where it's really spacious and building from the basic elements. Like you're kind of pulling notes out of the air, a little bit, very gradually, and kind of constructing something in space. So that can have more of a hypnotic effect. I think in terms of like, if you're thinking more about the rhythmic trance elements, like, I don't know, some of the looping and kind of like expanding of one small kernel of a groove or something, and just kind of building that outward rather than forward, I guess. That's something that's in all kinds of music around the world, certainly in African music. I've studied African drumming, and it's also in James. I mentioned James Brown. It's in his music too. Actually, he can have a song called "Ain't Nothing But a Groove," and it's not boring. So that's all relevant.
Did I see a typo on your biography when I saw that you had a master's in physics from UC Berkeley?
It depends. Was it spelled right? No, that's true. That's
well,
true.
not just from UC, or a master's in physics, but also a degree from Yale, and I think a PhD as well from UC Berkeley. So, where do you find the time? That's an incredible schedule. Well,
that was long ago. I mean, like I said, I'm 40. I graduated from college literally 20 years ago. This is my 20th reunion year. And yes, as an undergrad, I was a math and physics major. I guess the point is that I didn't actually find out that I could be a musician for life, meaning make it my life until pretty late. And until then, I had tried out a whole bunch of other stuff. But then when I decided to leave physics, after I was partway into a PhD program in physics at UC Berkeley, rather than abandoning academia entirely, I was able to create my own PhD program, basically studying the science of music. So that's actually what my degree is in. And then I finished that 13 years ago. So, I've been living and working as an artist since 1998. But also that degree, that PhD stuff, was directly related to what I do as an artist. And I was already becoming active recording and touring and stuff in the mid-90s. So that's, I guess I was fortunate to have the opportunity to work on something connected to what I was doing and basically study music on my own terms.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. You made some reference of being now strictly in music since 1998. So I want to talk about that past 10 to 12, 14 years. And man, you've just been all over the map, done orchestral work in Yo-Yo Ma's ensembles, recorded ESPN acoustic jazz cues. So I've probably heard your music while I was watching the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Oh, I hope so.
On Saturday afternoons. You've recorded a poetry album with Mike Ladd, collaborated with an Islamic punk band. I'm just kind of curious, with such a wide-ranging and omnivorous taste, do you see yourself more as just, a kind of a general music junkie or a jazz piano player or somewhere in between those two?
Well, to me, they're not incompatible, those two things. I think if jazz is something, and it's very hard to say that it is something because it's so many, it means so many different things to different people. But I think what it seems to have in common for everybody who uses the word is that it's a process. It's about creative process. It's basically about creativity and being open and being open to what's around you and being having discipline and rigor and focus that comes from a place, that comes from a heritage and a tradition. That's also about transformation of the self and transformation of what's around you and people in your community. So I see what I do is very much in keeping with what my heroes, Duke Ellington, Thelonious Monk, and John Coltrane were doing, very much in the same vein. They were open to a lot of things. Coltrane hung out with Ravi Shankar and was checking out all kinds of stuff, So I don't feel like my openness is so unique. Actually, it's quite, it's right down the middle as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Keeps it in the jazz tradition.
Well, yeah. The jazz tradition is one of being open and being creative and being honest, true to yourself. So that's what I'm trying.
I wanted to ask you what's in the works for your trio in terms of the rest of the spring and summer. Do you guys will you go to Europe? Will you continue in the States?
We've been touring a lot in the U.S. Where the reason I'm out in San Francisco right now is that we're playing this week here at Herbst Theater, and I'm doing some educational stuff leading up to that. Then next week we're doing a week at Birdland in New York City, and then after that we're going to Europe for a few weeks, hitting all kinds of spots over there. and we're doing stuff through the end of the year and into next year as well. So it's an exciting time, lots of stuff going on.
Well, we'll work on building up a campaign for Vijay Iyer here in Nebraska on the J Train. It'll all start right here. It'd be great to have you come through.
I'd love to visit. People always ask me, why aren't you playing here? And it's always like, well, We go where we're invited. So if you can make that happen, I'd be honored. I'll be there in a heartbeat.
Oh, thanks. Well, we'd love to have you.